Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's your famous streamer, Bobby from Twitch, Danny from Facebook, and under the guise of CultureSpot, your polemical host. Debate bringer, polemic provider, an analysis giver. Now, exclusively to YouTube, with a rumble on its way. I suspect from a slightly different source from directly onto Rumble, I would say. Anyway, YouTube today, Facebook tomorrow, and we're playing around with some analysis this morning about the absolutely catastrophic state of the United Kingdom. So, everything fine and dandy on the tech side, with some little improvements to the microphone required. What we're going to do then, boys and girls, is push on. What we're going to do, boys and girls, is push on with some very acute analysis. And who knows, perhaps later, some contributions from on the ground in the northwest of England, the centre of the anarchy, the riotous degradation of British civic life, from an old friend in Bury, neighbouring Rochdale. Some say it's the belly of the beast. For the moment, however, let's have a little chat about what we see on our TV. That requires your host here tuning into a little bit of Sky News Live. No, I'd spent yesterday doing a little survey, not of the mainstream media, but what the YouTube community calls critics of the lamestream media. These are people on the populist side of web broadcasting, historians, contemporary historians, polemicists, agitators. The community which has managed single-handedly to, I would say, launch, pursue, and bring to fruition a revolutionary moment in the United Kingdom. As I look now at skynews.com, which I can do, boys and girls, because they are gentlemen for putting it live on YouTube for free. They bring the mainstream media, the church of our times, to our screens without any hassle. And we can find them anywhere in the world so long as we access the YouTube. I can promote the YouTube because I am streaming on it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm watching a warmish looking gentleman from Sky standing in Plymouth. Now, American buddies, American amigos and amigas, where is Plymouth? Plymouth is a sleepy town, sleepy enough town, quite close to Portsmouth. The difference with Portsmouth is it's a naval town. It has a military presence. It has a major naval port. And the British Navy trains up there, sets sail for places like the Gulf, the Middle East. In contrast, Plymouth is a sleepy town where perhaps your naval officers might make a home for themselves in beautiful Cornwall, the southwest of England, which is famous for the lore of King Arthur and the Round Tables. Before Game of Thrones, there was not Tolkien. There was not The Hobbit. There was King Arthur and the Celtic mythology of old Britain. And that brings us to perhaps what is the heart of this question. Is Elon Musk, who I take to be a polemicist with a certain politics aligned with Mr. Trump and Mr. Vance, is he right about the UK succumbing to a civil war between races? I dare not use the word. Between communities is the polite middle class liberal way of putting it. A war between communities, a civil war is what he has in mind. Perhaps his youth, no, his childhood in South Africa reveals his psychology here. He saw apartheid in action. He saw races at war. Is he making a similar assumption about the United Kingdom today? I've taken a pause because I'm still looking at my issues. I'm happy with my camera position. You see my Spanish apartment here. Let's make a new connection. Now, I'm a resident in Spain. I'm a long-time European, though I'm a British expatriate. Some lefties might call me an immigrant. However, I've been on the continent, as it were, for 15 years. I've seen Brexit go down. The reason for my departure from France, an unfriendly country, to a friendlier country, no longer so. Spain is no longer a friendly country to us. They are resentful of Brexit. But we are going too far away. The point is, I'm in Spain, and who is in Cyprus amongst British squaddies? A man whom the mainstream media first refer to now as Mr. Yaxley Lennon. They don't even refer to him as Mr. Yaxley Lennon, just because I've temporarily forgotten his first name. But you know who I'm talking about. And Yaxley Lennon has always adopted a pseudonym, a nom de plume, a stage name of Tommy Robinson. Now, Yaxley Lennon suggests a mixed English and Irish heritage, but Tommy Robinson has its links to the kind of UDF, UVA guys, urban guerrillas, some will call them terrorists, of Protestant Northern Ireland. I think there's a unionist connection there, and I suspect he comes from a unionist family. Now, he's in Spain, I'm in Cyprus. There is no connection between us, but the story has been that agitators have provoked riots throughout England and parts of Scotland, owing to the ferocious speed of the internet. And what the BBC, let's call the BBC as representative of the mainstream media, calls misinformation spread online. Now, they pointed at Tommy Robinson because he's a household name, practically speaking. He's been on Jordan Peterson recently, which I think is a slight misstep. And also on his part, on Mr. Peterson's part, he is an agitator. Like Mr. Tate, but he is a specifically a political agitator. Mr. Tate is a profiteer. He is an entrepreneur, a grifter, as we call him. But Mr. Yaxley Lennon, Tommy Robinson, is an agitator. He used to do it on the ground, but he's no longer kind of welcome on the ground. He'll be arrested instantly. So he will do it online where he can. But true enough, he is on holiday in Cyprus. He's away from the action. He's been accused of spreading enough propaganda to start race riots, even a race civil war, as Elon Musk has put it. That's a lot for me, guys. That's a lot for me. Now, I'm laughing. You've had all of me already, but I turn on Sky News and I see someone in Wales in a spotty black and white top, the new Welsh First Minister, giving an address. So isn't it our luck to have moved away from the violence on British streets? Where can I go to instead? The Times. Headline: The Times of London, the famous old British newspaper, owned by Rupert Murdoch. News International. Now, I nickname it the Neocon Times because all this newspaper does nowadays is bang, beat the drums of war between Britain, obviously the United States, and Russia. That's all they do nowadays. They are the neoconservative Times of London. But they are the main, the biggest centre-right vote, meaning liberal, but verging towards the right. Of course, they asked people to vote Labour and in the last election. And look how that's turned out. Anyway, they go with prison spaces waiting for rioters, says Minister, as violence continues. Nearly 400 arrests have been made across the country, more expected. Yes, they need prison spaces because what happened the day that Labour got into power, having got an enormous majority, which I also think is the root of this violence. They reported on the catastrophe of British prisons, how prisoners would continue to be set free early because where they couldn't house them with a new set of prisoners coming in. Investment was needed. Tories hadn't invested. Look at what happened. A few weeks later, the country's on fire because Keir Starmer is a terrible politician, as I've argued for several years now. He's a company man, as we call it. I don't know if the Americans have it. You Americans have this expression. A company man means a guy who's very good in organizations. He's good at the politics of organization, but he's basically a desk person who spent a day on the phone making politics with his colleagues in order to get to the top, but has no ideas of his own. So Keir Starmer is a politician, a prime minister without any ideas whatsoever. But what he was two verbs, was the principal public prosecutor for the UK for several decades, associated with Jimmy Savile BBC scandal. All sorts of stuff which has been partly repressed. But what he knows about is putting people in prison temporarily because he had to do so in 2011 owing to the London riots. So here we have our principal characters. The shadow, the legacy of the London riots. Stroke, Keir Starmer. Second, Tommy Robinson, Mr. Yaxley Lennon in Cyprus. Away from all this. Is he the source of YouTube? Social media. Misinformation leading us to Elon Musk, our original protagonist. Grown up in South Africa. Recognize the civil war, a war based on racial lines. We're going to go into that. We're going to go into the civil war stuff. This is how I promised. Personally, I think Labour can lock up 500, but these riots will go on as long as the streets are vulnerable. Which may lead one day to a situation, bringing us back to Tommy Robinson here, like Northern Ireland, where the army presides over civil order. We saw in Belfast in the 1970s and onwards. A catastrophe. Britain is turned into the location of the civil war then. Okay? The other thing I'm looking at is a nice aside. This is a very personal aside for me because I'm a TV sport watcher. We see a beautiful figure of Keely Hodgkinson. What have we witnessed for the last 2 weeks? We've witnessed the chummy, very jolly British middle class away in sunny Paris, the global home of culture and cultural history, having a whale of a time running around on tracks, doing things like table tennis or more serious things like gymnastics and swimming, but dominating TV screens while the typical kind of stuck at home, I'm working class, I can't get a proper job, maybe I've underachieved anyway. On the other side is this and that Asian person running this and that shop. Lots of his lads are out there, squaring up to us. We're sick of it. We're sick of seeing these people on the TV. We've got Starmer calling us bigots because we didn't like what's happened in an atrocious murder. And can you see some extra pieces of the jigsaw puzzle there? I think look at the mediatization of sport and class conflict. Don't call it class conflict, but it's producing class conflict, isn't it? Yeah. The focus, as always, is on a comfortable British middle class having a jolly time somewhere else, often with their achievements being presented by multicultural media broadcasters from Black and Asian backgrounds. And the main point is that the people who are angry are not being represented anywhere at all in the United Kingdom. What counts in the world today? the media's representation of reality, and there is no place for tattooed working class, post-industrial, disenfranchised people who are of lower education until they get angry and take out their rage on something, and many will say, sadly, on places holding refugees. That brings us to the final piece of the picture of the jigsaw puzzle, but will it be a final piece? That is the question of the channel crossings, the question of borders being left open, a border problem never being resolved. United States first, Biden, left liberals, left-leaning Democratic American government, Britain, the new British government, left-leaning, left of centre social democratic, giving out the same signals. We're not going to do anything specific about our open borders on the sea. We're just going to crack down on the criminal gangs. When a person listens to that, whether they come from a high education and 20 years of political commentary in some elevated media position, or they're just talking about it down the pub after the footy game, they feel the same thing. This is a lack of interest. Yeah. All it means, they're going to bring on more civil servants for new Labour government to process asylum claims from young men crossing the sea in dinghies run often by gangs who traffic heroin and enslaved prostitutes in places like Albania. Anyway, the Middle East included criminal syndicates. They're not smuggling asylum seekers, they're smuggling girls. They're girls who become prostitutes and hard drugs. That's why the Tories' only success was a deal with the Albanian government, which I'm sure they transferred lots of funds to Albanian government to stop access of more Albanian criminal gangs to the UK. It's the only thing that the Tories managed, which I imagine by paying the Albanians lots of money. The Albanian government. Right, let's go on talking. I keep looking at Keely Hodgkinson. I mean, she's not the greatest beauty in the world, but she is healthy and she's been celebrated for running 800 meters, surrounded by a lot of other glamorous young women as well. Where does this leave the Britons who rage? Well, exclusion. Exclusion is the key. One side champions diversity. That means a spicier, more multiculturalized British profile, more exotic restaurants, and more equity and racial representation. The other side expresses exclusion. Yeah, that's all we have here. And exclusion, you might as well just be watching Melindis on your TV all day and saying, why am I stuck in a bog estate with nothing going like economically? And my family being bankrupted by the inflationary conditions of the last 10, 20 years. Why has this happened? British government, unquestioning support for American foreign policy, a messed up energy market, lack of provision, lack of planning, all in supporting a lot protracted war in Ukraine, supporting the American agenda there, and having British households literally bankrupted. If you're not bankrupted, maybe some were. They were prevented from being bankrupted by bankrupting the British state. 400 billion spent on lockdowns, on the furlough scheme to keep millions from going destitute, and bankrupting the state with bigger welfare payments. After that, 100 billion spent on bailing out British households because of a messed up energy market and supporting a protracted neoconservative war in the Ukraine. All right. Wowzers, we've got a lot to talk about. These are early days, boys and girls, and I'm insulin deprived today. I'm in a particular state of mind, you could say, but I love to talk. And this is my boudoir, my political boudoir in the south of Spain. And can we answer the question, is Elon Musk right about the UK? We still can't get any input from Sky because they're talking about Welsh devolution. For most people's lives, utter irrelevancy. And again, people, and again, a new Labour, Tony Blair policy introduced for no particularly good reason. Perhaps the only rational reason to quell the fires of Scottish nationalism. Well, that worked, didn't it? Still, in the end, they lost. The SNP lost the independence vote, so that madness was averted. Absolute chaos there. Well, what's happened? Another distraction, another layer of bureaucracy, another layer of management, or another layer of government. A duplication in which everybody loses because the left hand never knows what the right hand is doing. There's no joined up thinking, and conditions get worse in. I won't say public services. I don't approve of the NHS, or certainly what it's become in the last 30 years. But why don't I approve the NHS? Because we've been adding 400,000 a year. Let me tell you, in net migration. There were 1 million Brits in Spain. We formed 1 million over 20, 30 years. Probably since we joined the EU, properly in the 1980s. Yeah, 30 years adds up to 1 million Brits in Spain. Okay, quite a lot of us have left after Brexit. Yeah, I replaced them. What can I say? And believe me, we're not welcome. We've been hassled over our driving licenses. We're still being hassled there. Effectively, that's not really being resolved, and we're just not. We are protest against us. It's not friendly towards us. Like plenty of small words I can test that, but I don't want to moan too much because this is still a comfortable country. The UK is not really a comfortable country at the moment because people are being bankrupted by the conditions of the last 4 years of this benighted decade. You thought the last decade was bad. Look at what's happened since. The last decade in the 2010s, terrorism, endless war, neoconservatism just picking up where Iraq left off. On and on and on. Let's not even to get into the woke, the progressive cultural politics. We'll see all on Sky News soon because we'll see the boxers again. We'll see the males of XY chromosomes being permitted to take advantage of a biological abnormality to beat around female boxers with the blessing of the pro-American wokesters. Live, straight back to the Welsh Assembly. Dear. So this is middle-class democracy, liberal middle-class democracy, which excludes. All it does is exclude. Yeah, it doesn't include because the inclusion happens anyway. Because I'm getting controversial now. Frankly, the minority communities of Britain are doing much better than soon-to-be minority. And majority communities who are struggling. Part of the reason we're struggling is the British class system is very rigid and it's punishing, and there's no sympathy for the excluded, meaning the working class. All that's gone. You saw that in Brexit. All that Labour sympathy for the working class is gone now. They're keeping on to their liberal worldview, to their own privileges. The domination of the universities in the countries, not just for education, but their culture, is to explain for why you have no sympathy for working class voices now. No, you simply have this sort of pop feminism. You have the rainbow, LGBTQI, endless alphabet. Human rights lobby, you have a men's right lobby by extension of trans stuff, and you have all the American equity, DEI stuff, which is inherently pretty racist, certainly separatist. We had all that in the 2010s, but it's got worse, partly because all the 2010s was discontinued. It's been a 15-year decade. And longer than 15 years, because the 2010s began in 2008. Did the noughties even exist? The zeros. We remember the noughties as the Iraq War, neoconservatism, and the Bush-Cheney years, but also the enormous property bubble driven by bad credit, driven by the subprimes, which made the Americans extremely rich. But did it? It increased their debt. You can argue China was buying so much American debt, but yeah, they had the credit to play the markets with these terrible subprime mortgages, these terrible junk bonds. But anyway, they're more in debt since. And if you ask me about Libya, about Syria was such a flop, we can't say anything. It was also an Islamic state, unqualified disaster. Got rid of the Democrats and Obama, if you ask me. But the return of war, of funding war without even fighting it now in the Ukraine, suggests that this is what's needed to really jig up corporate America, because this is a country with trillions of debt, the United States now, and China is China's knocking on the door with a great overtake. Biden subsidizing Chinese tech to come to America. Helping some American corporations, inflating cost of living for other people. Yeah. That is the monumental 2010s, which began in 2008. 2-year transition, actually, 2008 to 10. As Obama got into power and identity politics began. So we are seeing a continuation of a quite historical decade of 2010s. I think that the zeros was a sort of decadent bookend to the 1990s, which culturally and historically was momentous as well, with the Berlin Wall coming down, the Eastern Bloc collapsing, Soviet Union. We'll do a long history, hey? We'll do a long history. The long history is centuries old, not just extended decades. Back to Sky News. We've still got the Welsh Assembly. It's all right. Bobby's doing a kind of day without insulin. So he's a little bit frenetic. He's not as in control as he could be. I call myself Bobby Notes down on Facebook. It's CultureSpot. It's CultureSpot. I don't have a name. I am CultureSpot. I want guests. I want contributions. I'm CultureSpot. Yeah. Facebook, you'll see me as Dan because that's not on my monitor. On Twitch, I'm Bobby. Unfortunately, with Twitch, as Melanie Mack has highlighted recently, it is a highly decadent platform, which just features young ladies exploiting their charms, let's say, in a lighter fashion to OnlyFans. But because of OnlyFans, it's gone worse. And the Twitch censors will keep away any sex. Yeah, they'll keep it out. But Melanie's right. It's just a platform for people to exploit each other, and we know anyway what game streaming is about. It's about a girl with makeup and a nice little top on, getting lots of sex-starved teenage boys to watch her play a game. So we know what that's all about. There's a few connoisseurs of gameplay. There's all the world on Twitch. There's some punky young women. They're all kind of they're all glammed up though. It's very much a voyeur's channel, and in terms of a more brazen extrovert, uninhibited exploiting their physique. Yeah, it's about that, isn't it? It's a vanilla version of OnlyFans. It's free as well, isn't it? And obviously it's making the creators enough money. Well, good for them. Better there on Twitch than on OnlyFans. OnlyFans is disgusting. Twitch has chess competitions. It has. I don't think the chat is very relevant, really. You want chat, you go on Rumble, and hopefully we'll see a bit more of Gonzo chat like this one on YouTube. I'm watching more and more of it anyway. I find YouTube mainstream creators like Trigonometry. It's just, for me, it's becoming dismal. It's kind of dribbling away, really. And you got the sort of weaker imitators of them too. And of course, I mean, without Jordan Peterson, there'd be no Trigonometry, and without Joe Rogan, those are the only guys who counted. And if their replacements counted, I'd give them credit, but are they? It's dumbed down. Anyway, Bobby's going on. My only guy for today, as I said, is Sky. We've got a beautiful black newsreader commentating. I think she might be nice commentating. I want some ladies. We've got a little listen. Well, so you've got a female Sky, younger female Sky announcer saying the first thing the new First Minister of Wales said, Elena Morgan, when she was giving her speech on becoming the First Minister of Wales, I am the first female First Minister of Wales. What nonsense. So this is what the MSM dribbles out when it's not showing footage of riots. Anyway, news is our religion. I'm disappointed this hour has been taken up. They've used up the footage of last night's violence, and people sleep during the day, don't they? Because it's too warm, and they let's frankly, hooligans let the rest of everyone else clean up, much as they did as children with their parents. Could we go to maybe The Spectator's our last bit of media? Keir Starmer against Elon Musk. We covered Elon, really. X is crazy. Now, let me address my American viewers now. Let me address the question of the United States leading the world in podcasting. and alternative media. Now, Tim Pool, he's not a young gentleman I'm massively attached to. He's very millennial. He's got a very good media setup. He's invested in a ranch, effectively, for podcasting, in which he fights culture wars between the Republicans and Democrats. It's very based in American culture. But he got his 20 minutes with Donald Trump, but hasn't everybody now? Anyway, Tim Pool is adored in the United States. So is Stephen Crowder. We have no experience of Stephen Crowder, for example, in the United Kingdom or elsewhere. He's American specific. For me, so is Tim Pool. He's not a go-to figure for me. It's too based in American political culture. Anyway, Tim Pool yesterday on X. Now, I'm a really bad X user. I'm not a good X poster, but I don't really like even using, meaning viewing X. Just something about it's never grabbed me as Twitter. It took 10 years of disinterest in it and a lot of suspicion owing to anonymity and harassment of everyone all the time, which eventually became cancel culture and bullying, general bullying, and supporting the wrong issues. Yeah, the left using it eventually. Right, what did I see in Tim Pool? I saw a pretty, I'd say even a grainy video. I wouldn't say it looked amateurish. It looked old. The issue was the video looked old. It was a British street. It was like boarded up shops. It was a gang of guys who were looking what we call Asian in Britain, which means South Asian. It means Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi origin. We've got kind of sticks and stuff, just pretty improvised, beating up a kind of white guy in a hood. Now, Tim Pool was showing that. It didn't look like it was taken yesterday, but it'd been presented. He got hold of it and he said, what the heck is going on in the UK? And this, I think, is where the Elon Musk race riots, the racial civil war, his idea of the civil war, of a racial civil war he's got from his South African heritage, it's come from videos like that turning up in Tim Pool, one of the big formerly Twitter creators, and they've just been supplied there by British nationalists who basically want to cause trouble. Now, there are reasons why all of this exists, because we know that the communities have been squaring up to each other. We know that if there's an imaginary English Defence League, then there's an imaginary Muslim Defence League, because both of these are labels for activities which are going on. Yeah, and you can't say it's very sophisticated or very complicated what these guys have put together. They're just gangs who put these boys together to say, we believe this and we're going to defend this, and that's what they rioted on from Monday night onwards or Tuesday, because they believe that British nationalists believe that their community is not being protected by the government. The bias is on the side of protecting minority communities and not little girls being stabbed. And the Muslims are the same. They believe that Islamophobia is everywhere because the politicians tell them that. And there's an invisible force driven by Nigel Farage who's going to attack them all the time. Anyway, all this stuff has happened now in the last week. It's chaos. The British government has lost control. The British government has lost control. The Labour Party, as I suspected, a weak, untalented lot, have shown they are pretty useless. They're not sending out messages that prove they have an idea how to resolve these issues. They're just going to lock up youths and hope it goes away. Like the London riots went away, after a month, after they'd spread around the country in 2011? Disaster. Somehow they managed to hold the Olympic Games the next day and people came the next year. Good thing it was a summer. It was almost 12 months gap. Wow. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen in the UK? Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the government is not going to fall. But when I say government, I mean the state. I mean 1789 France, 1917 Russia, St. Petersburg, could have been. The state fell. The French state fell. The Russian state fell. The French state was the monarchy with an administrative middle class. The administrative middle class were held to ransom. The monarchy were literally in exile or disposed of. The same with the Russian monarchy, with the old Habsburgs. Oh my God, not Montagues, Capulets. They went, Rasputin's friends, they all went into exile. It was a huge aristocracy went into exile. The Windsors, the royal family, is a huge aristocracy. They're keeping quiet. I am a Republican, small and big R. I support the Republican Party in the United States, the Grand Old Party, particularly the MAGA wing, and I'm Republican in the UK. I know that the only thing the British royal family is about is preserving their privileges, surviving. At the moment, the king's keeping quiet because he knows this is a threat to the monarchy. It's a revolutionary moment, potentially. Why is it a revolutionary moment? They're saying like these are just like thugs on the street. It's because the state has lost control. The state has lost control. The state can be overthrown. Yeah? The police have to work extremely hard cancelling their leads to stop the state being threatened. Because violence and threats and intimidations mean that, you know what, in literature and cinema, you know what they convert into? They convert into like the theft of property, the taking over property, the driving out of people from property. And then if those people have been driven out of their homes, if we're talking it's Christians versus Muslims, native Britons versus now 3 generations of immigrants, that's a race war. That's young men who are just capable of fighting back against the fussy hooligan element, and that's the state losing control. That's what happens in the countries where the migrants have come from across the sea, across the Channel, across the Mediterranean since Hillary Clinton, of Sarkozy, and idiot Cameron removed Gaddafi. That could happen to Britain. If that happens to Britain, then the government has to be voted out. What's happened in the past? 1920s in Britain, we had general strike, 1925. But after that, because it was not only unionists on the streets, it was not only working people protesting, it was violence, it was fighting, endless fighting with police. We had to have a national government. Yeah, the political parties had to come together in the existing system with the monarch, with the kind of toothless monarch, keeping the aristocracy in place. But the middle class politicians, the governors of Britain, right? The parliament effectively is the head of state because the PM can be removed just like that. It was a case, the last 4 years, it was a case 180 years ago. They can be removed just like that, and they were. So Lloyd George was replaced by Ramsay MacDonald. We had a government, a national unity, just called a national government, to sort out the massive working class union syndicalist action in 1920. And then it could have gone on forever because Weimar was 1920s in Weimar, Germany, was 10 years of blood and fire. It was appalling. It was just violence and destruction. It was chaos for 10 years. Now, that could have been Britain too, but the Wall Street crash made things even worse. I think it ended the worst of it, but that many years, 3 or 4 years of extreme agitation, let's call it. And we've seen that for 15 years already, on and off. In the West, in France, it's happened a lot. I'm off to France soon. The French people cannot stand them anymore. But I'm off to see them, see what's happened to their country. We'll just take photos, observe. We'll do all that. I'm massively posting on the whole culture now. Don't talk to me about them. But if this carries on all the time, if it happens that the British police and the courts, they lock up 1,000 people, but there's still 1,000 willing to take their place, because there's something those people, the working class communities, don't like about the response of the Labour government to little girls being stabbed by, in their eyes, a foreigner. Foreigners should be controlled, and in their eyes, not many should be let in, because 400,000 aren't being let in every year. And sometimes 70,000, 80,000 have just come across the channel, being dinghies supplied by gangsters. That's when the state falls. That's when there's revolution. That's when the political order is overturned. That's the final step. But the next step is the end of the government. Yeah, it's the end. If the problem's tracked down to Keir Starmer's ineffectiveness, he's gone. A new PM is put in place. Now that could be Rishi Sunak's moment. That's why he's stayed on as Tory leader. But the Prime Minister goes first. There's a government of national unity, a national government agreed by the Parliamentary Union Party, and they are Parliamentary Union Party, because they're faced with violent populist protests. They are a single body, yeah, with Farage in there. Now, you YouTubers, you podcasters, have you seen it? Do you see Nigel Farage as the president of the British People's Republic? Do you see him as that? You gone into that yet? Have you looked at that? Have you looked at the wheels of destiny turning to put Farage up there? A completely passive coup. Farage needs a reform. Got 700,000 more votes from the Lib Dems. Lib Dems 80 seats. But but all the same, Reform 5 seats. Even the Greens have got 3. I say there's two or three independent Muslim candidates. Speaking of the communitarianism and separatism which defines the UK now. Farage is sitting there waiting. He's been shown to be pretty useless in Parliament because he's just he's got a big mouth, and he does the Speaker, the Leader of the House, doesn't ask him to speak because they're opposed to everything he stands for. But he's there standing as possibly the leader of the government of national unity in a perverse way. I don't believe it personally because it just resembles how Hitler came into power in the Reichstag. But Germany had a president who gave Hitler the position because the parties were so divided and the violence on the streets was too much. Now, could you see a parallel in the British state or political asking Nigel Farage to become PM and address the mobs to tell them to just to stop? No other ideas, just to stop, because he promised reform, as is a word. It's a very interesting equation. For the moment, it's like a novel. It's like a historical simulation looking to, I think, to Germany, not even to Italy. Mussolini is a very different case. Yeah. If Farage is close to Mussolini, well, Mussolini was a socialist somehow, and Hitler was a psychopath. So we don't even want to think about what happened in Germany. Authoritarianism is always a theme. The fall of the state is Russia 1917. That's close enough in history. Forget about 1789. Forget about the French, because that was an absolute monarchy. Yeah, and we have a deliberately weak monarchy. But the fact that it persists, and we still have an unelected head of state because the king is head of state in the UK, is a big issue. I wouldn't say for many people, but when you boil things down, that is still the issue. Yeah, we don't have a powerful enough executive in the UK. Because what is a powerful executive? That's what you have in France. And they spent 3 years, the French presidency, getting the troopers out to fight the Gilets jaunes, the provincial working class who were coming to scrap the forces of law and order. Far left and far right together, which is why we see the far left and far right dominating French politics. Yeah, it's spectacular stuff. Here's a headline by Lloyd Evans, your theatre critic. I don't mind him so much. Does Wes Streeting know what he's doing? I guess he's just talking about the NHS. I don't know why they're even providing new stories. Is it about the problems of Dan? That's the NHS. The NHS is a simple issue for me. It just encourages immigration. That's all it does. Yeah. When you just turn up for your local doctor, we call him a general practitioner, local doctor's appointment, hospital because you've got a minor complaint, you go to casualty or you go to see a consultant. Casualty, you'll queue up, but you will be seen, and no money will exchange hands. If you go to see your local doctor, once you're registered, a similar thing. If you're an immigrant family with a few small kids and whatever, and mum doesn't speak in English, there's translators there, and that is proper. Multiculturalism is driven by socialised free healthcare. Yeah, you take that away, and a lot of it's gone. So it's a simple issue for me. I'm glad we touched on that briefly. I'd like to present a special version of a special on the NHS and the disaster of British socialised healthcare. But anyway, obviously I was speaking from the right. I don't regard myself as a nationalist right. I'm Republican right. Yeah, big R, small R. You want to call me something Republican right? Okay, believe in the British Republic. British People Republic, support the Republican Party, and generally populist movements. I'm not nationalist. I live abroad anyway. I don't believe in devolution, but I think there should be a British nation, and that's it. So, multiculturalism. Well, you can just judge for yourself. You think it's succeeded? No, it's failed. It was successful with certain numbers of people. It was successful. Stephen Yaxley known. Patriotic alternatives. To be sure, there's been some incitement from far right leaders in the patriotic alternative. Now they seem to exist, and by Stephen Yaxley Lennon and Tony Robinson, former leader of a disbanded group called English Defence League, disbanded because he was basically forced to do so. But the usual suspects, the guys who supported it, are all waiting for action. Let's say they're like reservists in the British Army. And up and running, but I don't think these guys really work. But let's get work and do holidays. You live do casual work. But it's full of people doing casual work. I'm the same. And it doesn't work very well, really. But some of these guys, I guess, have got a decent income. A lot of them are living at home with their families, because they're young men in their 20s. There's some money around, they do this and that, maybe some into crime, It was about that gay Labour politician. He was kind of right, but once the lad comes down from ciders and cocaine, he might be blubbering and peeing himself in court. That's that. That guy's a guy in. I've got, he's got a good turn of phrase at Labour, gay Labour MP in West of England. I'm not a bad piece. Fact, right? Police often scared for their lives. I think that's been one of the better articles. It addresses the Southport murder, so this is what I'd address to Elon Musk and the Americans. To the rioters, it doesn't matter, quoting the article, to the rioters, it doesn't matter that the suspect in the Southport murder of 3 girls a week and a day ago at a holiday dance camp came from a practicing Christian family, although he was born in Cardiff and is a British citizen. So Rwanda's a Christian country, and his family came there, I don't know, maybe a decade after the genocide. That his hard-working parents have led the aftermath of genocide in Rwanda that led to an estimated 800,000 deaths and meant nothing. Well, why should it? That the police had decided there was no political, religious, racial, ideological motive for killings also meant nothing. Well, they decided, but they haven't investigated it, no? Yeah. Personally, I think this young man killed those girls because he had a morbid obsession with the genocide in Rwanda. As soon as his name was released by the courts, Twitter was full of racist comments, mind of which stated he doesn't sound very Welsh to me, it's all about his skin colour and origin family. It is all about his skin colour and his origins in the refugee family, as if that's a surprise. The police have been confronted by ready-made networks, yes, many of which were established to oppose lockdown in belief it was a government conspiracy. Yes and no. Yeah. They're nationalist right, mate. Okay, just call them that. So this is, I'm saying this is one of the better articles, but at least it's a summation, really. It's a summation of the liberal viewpoint. They often meet in the ungoverned space of Telegram. Yeah. Telegram was massive for anti-vax and anti-lockdown protesters, massive. That made Telegram. But it's far from mainstream. We've talked about Patriotic Alternative is a group you should investigate, Americans, if you want to see there's sort of militia activity in the UK. The Muslim Defence League, they don't have an official name, but you can look into that too, but that's going to be very underground. It's going to be community-based. One of the challenges is that rioters who know the streets can often disappear and appear again somewhere else minutes later, causing destruction of the way. So every town has its nationalist right element who are ready. So they don't do a lot, and they're always on Twitter. Magistrate Inspector at Constabulary HMRC said police made some attempts to monitor social media discussions, but their efforts, quote, fell short of what is possible using modern technology. But they don't have the powers to do much. Yet, in the past, if you said something about gender, the police would commonly knock on your door and you'd be arrested. So this is interesting. This suggests that the organisers of these nationalist right protests for riots are very adept on social media. They're doing a very, very covert job, as it were. They're running an effective covert operation. Police estimated they needed to outnumber rioters by between 3 and 5 to 1 if they were to make arrests and disperse groups. Well, disperse groups is the first thing they have to do, or it rages all night, and more things get burned. I know this from the anti-capitalist blocks of 25 years ago. The black blocs would just burn down banks and smash up shops and break up, smash the windows of Nike and Starbucks, because that was a detachable lefty thing to do. It was name, McLaren stuff, no logo. That meant arrest tactics were impossible in some circumstances. Well, they've not arrested as many as they could have done because there's been enough to disperse them. So, officers and their commanders took action to bring the disorder to an end, but some erred on the safe side. Well, it's early days, just a week. These are the lessons they need to remember if they are to prevent events getting out of hand as they did in Rotherham and Tamworth. Well, that was a minimum, mate. The cops did the minimum to shorten a night of rioting, vandalism, fire and violence. Yeah, that was a minimum. I did not expect the cops to do any more than that. Only the army can do more than that by opening fire. Yeah, and that's how we get a fascist state. But that's how we get a civil war, Elon Musk. Yeah, right. This is bad. This is bad. I'll give it to Elon Musk. This is bad and simple. This is bad. This is a internal conflict going on, which the government don't have control of. So whatever you might look and read and analyze a little bit more. You might not, but you can. Your instinct, your instincts are not wrong in the first place. Now, this is what some of my writing is about. On May Day 2000, 95 people were arrested and 9 police officers were injured during far-left anti-capitalist riots in London. So London was taken over because, I was in Parliament Square when I saw them put the Green Mohican on Winston Churchill. And elsewhere, the capital was shut down by the police because the alcohol anarchists or crusters they were kind of dispersed everywhere, just drinking and smoking spliff. And it was just a chaotic day. And that's what we're getting overnight, though. But we're getting them from people who know what they're doing, I'm on nationalist rights, called them. Kettling is what they used to deal with the anti-capitalist process. So there is an interesting comparison to make with the anti-capitalist process, protests which were focused on May Day. May Day is a traditional trade union, working class, day of celebration of history and some massive activism, peaceful marches, etc. National holiday too. So when May 1st fell on a national holiday in 2000, it was chaos. There was no one at work and everybody was going crazy. That's quite a nice piece of obviously partial writing, but useful. Duncan Garden in The Spectator. You get a Spectator subscription if you feel like it. Not bad. It's about Britain, boys and girls. Unheard is Americanized. Unheard is millennial as well. Everyone in Gen X, the majority of writers in Spectator Gen X. So I'm a relatively old podcaster, streamer, so I'm going to speak for myself. Right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Sky's gone back to the riots finally. Online is headline banner. Online misinformation key factor in riots across the UK. So that story is not moving on. So that's quite dull. We can have a listen. Legitimate or illegitimate speech? That's quite an interesting question. Let's see where we're going here. Okay, so obviously, very early days for the tech here for CultureSpot's stream. It's a fun thing to do with a vest on and a pair of shorts on a very stuffy Spanish morning, and I might be doing it again in the evening. But I'd like to have some contributors on to have a discussion. So I will be organising that in the coming weeks. I think morning is good for a news review. Let me play with the tech as the week goes on. What we're Tuesday. I like to talk. I mean, to give my background in the streaming world, I've just been streaming on Twitch, just getting the mic and the audio, the performance code, just putting Elden Ring on or some golf. But those days are over because I'm not 22 with a little low cut top, so it's kind of a waste of time. Still recommend Twitch for people who like chess, though, mainly because it's a very pretty girl, Anna Crown. It's very beautiful, and she shoots it in Spain, so that's all quite nice. Her mother's a chess grandmaster who slightly annoying, but obviously knows the game extremely well. Yeah. So, am I making predictions? No. Okay, I'll give you one. This is going to run for another week before someone has a good idea. Labour so far have no good ideas. Labour have no good ideas about anything. They're a disaster. Somebody in research, in security research, possibly in MI5, was it MI6? MI6 is, I think it's MI6 is usually civil disorder. Will put together a plan by Friday. I think there'll be some discussion over the weekend, and then we might see something shift next week. But it's going to be another week of messing around while they'll ask for police to come up with a strategy too. There'll be a talk about whether Parliament should come back from their holidays. Now, really, everyone has such a low disdain of the British political class. They do have regular holidays, the parliamentarians do. They have two plus weeks off every so often. Breaking news, Hezbollah. So there's war everywhere again. But what can you expect with Democrat and a Labour administrations? Wait till the weekend to see how events are transpiring. I'll be going out every morning from now on because I'm at a big crossroads in my life. I'm not alone. I'm not alone, my friends. Several friends on it too. But the crossroads in our life, we're feeling the same pressures. We're feeling that there's never been a greater gap between the sexes. We can't communicate with each other anymore. We're not able to work with each other. Basically, that's disappearing. All that is disappearing. We're becoming atomized in terms of our work. More and more of us, as we said, we're not young men. Men do not publish anymore. They make podcasts or they stream. We post on X. We post on newspaper comment boards. We can't post anymore on the Guardian and the Times on the mainstream, so we can just about get away with the Spectator and Unheard. So those are our new platforms. They're establishments. Non-heard isn't. It's a young person's thing. And of course, Twitter is not for posting, boys and girls. Twitter or X. X now, not Twitter. X is for mobilizing political activism. Yeah, that's what X is for. That's very interesting. Analyze that, as Bobby Dinner would say. Yeah. Who I've been watching? I've been watching Tick. This guy, Tick History. He's basically doing a very, very popularized version of James Lindsay. So look out for James Lindsay if you've not seen all his stuff. There's my BBC alert. He gave an amusing polemic on Starmer, which I appreciate possibly more than his history lessons. And Richard III, I think Richard III is the best around at the moment. I'd say Richard III, because I mean he really is very, very good. Richard III. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll say my echo is not great at the moment. This is an ongoing issue anyway with microphones, and it's coming to suggest to me that I'm going to go down the mixing desk direction and really work on sound. So we hope to improve the quality for you in the days that are coming, days and weeks. You'll just catch Bobby at home on his. That's my own name, Bobby. You'll catch him at home. That will be my podcasting name. You catch me at home with you see the little lounge laid out here. I make podcasts on this channel soon. They're a lot of work. It's hot work at this time of year. South of Spain, we're looking at 35 average every day. The humidity is enormous this year. It's literally 95% humidity. So you'll catch Bobby. You'll have a vest on. You won't have shades. There'll be shades on once he's ready to podcast. He'll be moving around a lot, you know. He's an experienced communicator in terms of streaming. He can talk for hours. He already has talked for an hour. You see, it's called My Stream there. How long have we been streaming for? But that's all right, because we're just moving it along like that. And we'll be doing it every day because it's summer and strange things happen in summer. And my cam view is a lot better on Lightstream than it is on YouTube, so that's another thing to look at. But yeah, I think we might just do a Facebook tomorrow. But anyway, we're returning to this stuff soon. It's been a pleasure. I'll say to you, if you can pop into CultureSpot and have a little listen. It would be a pleasure for me for you to have a listen. I'll be live at some point. I'm just transitioning away from Twitch. It's gone. I'm using elementary software, which works pretty well for me. I'd say with Lightstream, the big issue on Lightstream is the mic. We've not got any mic settings we can work with. So as we know, everybody's series has to go through Streamlabs, OBS, or Streamlabs. I think gives you more potential, but has a tendency to crash more. Anyway, we'll be YouTubing. We'll be Facebooking tomorrow. And not Twitch one, because Twitch I might do a night stream from Twitch. Yeah, I might do a night stream. I'll just see how it goes. I tend to game at night because I'm a bit tired. But the odd night I might go Twitch on this. Well, I've got IMT. I think that's an American destination. Oh, I can add a destination here. Okie dokie. Anyway, that was our first YouTube experience. and I'll catch you all some other time. It's been a pleasure.